Whoa, and I almost forgot to hit the record button. Actually, you know what? This is what I'm just going to use this. We're going to start the intro again. I was like, oh, I could put the intro song in after and fix it. But this is a live show. All right, take two.
And we're live. You're listening to the Hashgraph Enthusiast Show.
Hosted by Brandon Davenport, aka itsbrandond.
There we go. There we go. I'm getting the hang of it, guys. So many buttons, so many switches to push around here. And this is gonna be a good one. We got a lot to talk about today. And with that, hello from Ottawa, Canada. My name's Brandon Davenport, aka itsbrandond. It is, geez, what is the day? My God, it's Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope the New Year's treating everybody well. It's been an interesting one so far. It is episode 107 of the Hashgraph Enthusiast Show. You ain't seen nothing yet. There's a Canadian band called Bachman Turner Overdrive that has a song called You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet, so it's kind of like Canadian music reference. Yada, yada. This is a weekly news show. We talk all about Hedera, Hashgraph, all the related organizations, HBAR, HBARbarians, Hederians, and all the top stories, all about that. I'm all about the Hedera. And also, too, I want to touch on some things in the crypto industry, just because it's important to know about. Here's some stuff we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about SaucerSwap, of course. I think they're top of mind for everybody. There's like this mystery player that it's been in the Hedera ecosystem called WISeKey that was on my radar a little bit. I think we talked about them on the show in the last summer. But recently there was a headline that came out this week that was very interesting to me. We're going to talk about some of the replies I got from the community about what HBAR holders should be watching for this year. The HBAR Bull did 2 great episodes over the holidays. There was just a couple things I want to touch on that were really interesting to me. Neuron's been putting out some spicy tweets. The Hedera president, Charles, has been putting out some spicy tweets. Got some Dovu stuff. Got some HBAR domain things to mention. We're talking about Bitcoin and stuff. Of course, I think that's huge right now. Yeah, it's going to be a very, very packed episode, but I think the new format will be able to move through things. And listening to the show, if you are, listening live right now on X Spaces, every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific time, that's when to tune in. Just follow me on X at itsbrandond. This is currently live, but if you're listening, on YouTube or Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever other place you enjoy listening to podcasts, it is recorded, so it goes up the following day. And huge shout out to everyone, sharing and subscribing and reviewing and engaging on those platforms. It helps it grow. It means a lot. I love YouTube is great for the comments. Like there's a lot of really great comments that people leave on YouTube. And I mean, I know this is an audio show. I do want to have more video stuff in the future, but so far on YouTube, it's kind of been fun. It's been good. I mean, the show averages about in total, at least 1,000 listeners per episode. So it's not bad. And yeah, if you're listening to the live show on X Spaces right now, give it a share. The more the merrier. And the new website, I was talking about that just before the show, and, updated the website for Hashgraph enthusiasts. I'm pretty excited about it. Got a new domain name, hashgraph.news. The website has, all the previous episodes, all the ways to listen, all the info about the show. So if you want to get plugged in, hashgraph.news. Check it out. I'm digging it. Can't believe I got that domain name. Yeah. So one of the new things I want to do in the show is I got a lot of great answers from people in the Hedera community. And I ask a question, and near the end of the show, I'm just going to read kind of what people sent, just to kind of their responses to the question. But the question I asked, and I guess I'll ask of everybody right now listening, there's a little comment button at the bottom right of the spaces. You can click that and leave a comment. I'd be curious to hear people's answers to this question, which is, what's the most important thing for an HBAR holder to watch for in 2024? So like, as Hashgraph enthusiasts, what's your top of mind thing going into this year in the Hedera ecosystem? What should, maybe new HBAR holders keep an eye out for this year? Very interesting responses so far. Curious to see if anyone listening has anything to chime in on with that. So let's dive into some popular headlines. These are things from around the crypto sphere that are important to know about. One of them is, of course, we saw Bitcoin surpass 45,000. That was pretty big. And largely, that's due to, all the rumors surrounding this ETF stuff. And the big news around that is the SEC, right? The Securities and Exchange Commission is set to give a notification potentially as early as this week regarding those ETFs. And I mean, a quick refresher, the SEC has been kind of a shared enemy of the crypto industry, and their approach has been kind of confusing. And, Gary Gensler at the SEC has been taking a lot of the heat for that. There are, Bitcoin ETFs, ETF being a exchange traded fund, which would effectively allow anybody with access to the stock market in the US to buy Bitcoin without needing to create a wallet. So you can easily kind of see what that would be able to do for onboarding the masses, and getting liquidity into the market. So really what the story's been all last year and up until now is just, the SEC has been continually slowing the process of those ETFs arriving at the market. There's a lack of clarity. There's that kind of ongoing battle. But the big news regarding the SEC and the approval of Bitcoin ETFs is that the SEC could make a decision as early as today or tomorrow, according to Reuters. Asset managers that submitted timely filings could launch spot Bitcoin ETFs as early as January 10th, the SEC's decision date for the ARK and 21 shares ETFs. So basically there's a few institutions that want to launch these Bitcoin ETFs, right? I think the main one people have been watching is BlackRock, right? And so Bloomberg's ETF analysts have given an over 90% chance of approval, which is possibly higher now, and a likely deadline of January 10th. So the deadline is kind of when they'll go to the market. The SEC's notification will come, maybe today or tomorrow, or at least this week, potentially. Well, according to Bloomberg, over a 90% chance. However, real quick, the other note on the Bloomberg stuff is the SEC may notify issuers of spot Bitcoin ETFs as early as today that have been cleared for launch next week. However, Matrix Report's latest report claims that the SEC will reject all Bitcoin spot ETFs in January. That just came out today, which is weird. And final approval may be achieved in Q2. Despite this, TD Cowen believes that the SEC will approve the ETFs by January 10th. So basically, I think there's a strong chance they'll be approved. That's generally what most analysts and people are saying. And really it comes down to the fact that, like we talked about in the last episode, companies are now running television ads for Bitcoin ETFs, right? Like remember, there was like that most interesting man in the world. Here, let me see if I can pull this up. Bitcoin ETF ad. It might be interesting to see how many views these have, but this has a really big impact on Hedera as well. Like if liquidity flows into this industry, it's good for Hedera. But this is the Bitcoin ETF ad. Check this out.
You know what's interesting these days? Bitcoin.
Cut. What if we get him?
Like, this is an ad going out on TV, right? This is crazy.
You know what's interesting these days? Bitcoin. Look for Bitwise, my friends.
So that's Bitwise with their Bitcoin ETF. So like these, and Google, redid their kind of like ad policies for this type of stuff. So I don't know if these companies are going to be moving forward in this way if, it wasn't pretty serious. And, as we've seen, leading up to this in the last, home stretch, it's like there's a lot of downward pressure. People, institutions are like, crypto's bad or this or that, or there's slowdowns. Like there's also speculation of, hey, is there this downward pressure for people to get in their positions before it's approved? Who knows? Now, there was a scoop posted by Eleanor Tourette on X, who's like a journalist, and this was something that picked up a lot of attention just probably about an hour ago. The SEC is holding meetings today with the exchanges NASDAQ, CBOE, and the New York Stock Exchange to finalize comments on the 19B4S submitted by the Bitcoin spot ETF issuers. So basically, stuff's moving. The train's picking up steam. And we're going to have to see what happens with Bitcoin spot ETFs, but it will have an impact on the Hedera ecosystem. Now, the total crypto market cap is nearing or is just past kind of $900 billion. So that's another thing too, is this, as the market approaches, that 100 trillion mark, or the 1 trillion mark, it is a sign that things are picking back up. I think that I would say the majority of investors would say that the worst of the bear market is over, another funny metric is Solana NFT sales surpassed Ethereum, right? So these are all signs that there is volatility entering the space again, that there's money entering the space again, that there are shifts happening. It's going to be interesting to see how Hedera fits into it all. But the reality is that these types of things happening in the peripheral are going to have an effect on Hedera. Now, there's been a sell-off too. The last thing is like there was a bit of a sell-off on Bitcoin, like it dipped a bit. There's a great point made regarding that was this is likely tax related, because a lot of people were like, oh, is Bitcoin, going down because of the ETF stuff with kind of the hesitations or potential non-approval. But really, I think it's just, is selling for the next tax year or whatever, if you're not on a different fiscal year for companies. I think that's mostly what it is. Now, I want to dive into our main stories just real quick. The show is approaching 150 episodes. We just had our 100th episode. And shout out to, I can't remember who shared it on Twitter, but someone today was like, hey, I'm listening to the 100th episode of Hashgraph Enthusiasts. Who is that? Oh, yeah, they're listening. Shout out to new.hangry. I don't know how to pronounce your name. NIEU. Shout out to you. Appreciate you. And yeah, on the show, we've covered every major story. We have many great guests on the show. It's independent, community supported, no ads, no sponsors. So if you'd like to, there's a post pinned to the top of the spaces. Leave a tip in HBAR. Really appreciate the contributions. I mean, the reason the show has a bunch of new equipment and, we're making all these upgrades and changes and stuff is, just people sending HBAR to the show. So, it's awesome to have a community run, independent kind of news show for the ecosystem, which I dig. So appreciate everybody supporting the show. The Hedera wallet address is in that post above. So SaucerSwap. SaucerSwap has really kind of been at the forefront of a lot of things. Especially in the Hedera ecosystem. And I think that when I look at SaucerSwap, I really see a battle-hardened team. I mean, Hedera DeFi, like DeFi in general, like let's just look at, decentralized finance, even centralized finance. Let's look at that over the last, year or so, and in just the overall industry. It's been brutal, right? I mean, the crypto market in general has been brutal, but on Hedera, the DeFi ecosystem, we have DEXs, but we don't necessarily have lending. We don't necessarily have a retail Oracle. We don't have, liquidity for stable coins, right? Like USDC minted on Hedera. So there's so many headwinds and so many challenges with DeFi on Hedera. And I mean, that's how it goes. I mean, we're at the beginning. This is, the DeFi ecosystem on Hedera is kind of still in its infancy a little bit, but it's a hard space. And so you look at SaucerSwap and the success that they've had and kind of the recent news around them, and especially the price of the Sauce token, it really shows like definitely a battle-hardened team and a DEX that is now in the top 25 on DeFi Llama. So the DeFi ecosystem on Hedera is really being led by SaucerSwap in all sorts of different ways, just from a strict numbers standpoint. And there's many opportunities over this year, like over 2023, where they really could have had major fumbles, but didn't. They made a lot of really important decisions that I think were really good and overcome a lot of different crazy challenges, like especially, if anyone remembers kind of the vulnerability and exploit that happened in March last year, even something like that is so crazy. But they've been really aggressive with their marketing too. Like if people noticed, we talked about this on the last episode, but in general in crypto, a lot of people are, concerned and frustrated with increased fees and failed transactions and all those different things on different networks. We've seen like on Solana and Cardano and Avalanche and Ethereum, and so people are expressing a lot of frustration regarding fees and different things like that. And so SaucerSwap has been completely out in front on that and really hammering the point home that Hedera has low fixed fees and the benefits to their DEX. And they've been doing that, and it's got a lot of really good engagement. I don't know if we've hit the point yet where people from other networks are kind of seriously looking at SaucerSwap as an alternative in a big way. But what I will say is that what we're seeing with SaucerSwap right now, I feel, is kind of the byproduct of just being a survivor of a bear market. It's really kind of the community and this ecosystem like rallying behind SaucerSwap a little bit and kind of like they've really shown that they can withstand a lot. And so going into a bull market, where arguably you also will have many, many challenges. You kind of look at SaucerSwap and you go, okay, this team, this DEX, not only does it have like an unfair advantage in a few key areas that they've been talking about just because it's built on Hedera, but it's a great team. Now, one thing that was interesting is, I think it was last week, must have been last week, there were mirror node issues that SaucerSwap was experiencing that were slowing things down. And again, this is another interesting component of this is SaucerSwap is growing, and the amount of HTS transactions that they were doing was causing network issues with the mirror nodes. And so we're seeing something else interesting play out where a community startup DApp, DEX, like a community app, right, is driving that scale of the network. Like SaucerSwap was having so much traffic that it's really sparking more conversations about scaling the network in different ways and stuff. So that's exciting to see. That's kind of it's very similar to when we talk about the soft kind of TPS limit or thresholds at the 10K TPS, where, of course the network can process, upwards of 100,000 transactions on one shard. But as optimizations are put into place, the network is kind of soft limited to 10,000 transactions per second as things kind of open up. Similar as we kind of see use cases ramp up on the mainnet, they'll have to increase that limit. That's kind of what we're seeing play out with SaucerSwap, right? We're seeing a use case enter a new level of utilization where those types of conversations are happening. So it's very interesting. They just hit $70 million TVL, which is exciting. They're almost at 2 million trades. I want to see, are they at 2 million trades? I wanted to have them on the show too. I reached out. They're not doing live interviews right now, but yeah, those guys are busy. The SaucerSwap guys are busy. I do speak with them frequently, and they're good folks. But yeah, so 1.99 million all-time trades. So that's also quite a milestone. 260 million trade volume, $45 million market cap. Obviously, that was at the time of writing these notes. It's about 41 million now just because of the drop, or 42 million. They're up, over 350% in the last 90 days, the Sauce token. They achieved an all-time high weekly trade volume on their DEX. And as I said, they're number 25 in terms of TVL on DeFi Llama. So it's the real deal. Like SaucerSwap is turning out to be the real deal when it comes to decentralized finance in its most basic form on the network. And I think that's really what they did was they chose to do the basic simple stuff, do it really, really well, and kind of branch out from there. But there's a lot of stuff they want to work on. But I like that they're focusing on the fundamentals. They also published a Medium article that was kind of like a retrospective back through 2023. There's a few excerpts from it. One is, they said, in February, we smoothly transitioned away from the HBAR Foundation grant by extending HBAR rewards to yield farmers indefinitely via a novel, yield-bearing, wrapped HBAR contract that takes advantage of Hedera's proof of stake rewards. So that was huge because a lot of people were concerned with SaucerSwap of, well, when they run out of money from the HBAR Foundation, how are they going to continue, providing that yield to liquidity providers. So they really did a smart thing where when you stake your HBAR on the network and you get those staking rewards, basically the wrapped HBAR contract that SaucerSwap has allows for that HBAR inside that contract to be staked as well. So it's like pretty interesting. I know that there's conversation around wrapped HBAR in general on the Hedera network, but that was a big thing for SaucerSwap, making that switch. They're like kind of like self-sustainable in a way, which is really cool. They also said, as we approach 2 million total trades, SaucerSwap has facilitated interaction for users of all types with Hedera DeFi in a permissionless, non-custodial environment with an average transaction speed of 5 seconds and a cost of less than 10 cents, fixed in US dollars, regardless of network traffic. See, they keep hammering that point, which is really important. SaucerSwap has realized its vision of a decentralized access to fair, accessible, and efficient trading protocol on Hedera, the most performant network in Web3. So really kind of hammering all their points there. And yeah, I think that's a huge talking point they have. Now, going into 2024, on that article, they highlighted some things they're working on. I want to touch on these. So in development right now that they're working on currently is the Sauce Pro program. We've seen a lot of other exchanges doing stuff like this, like Coinbase Pro. And there was a NFT platform that did it, but a lot of these platforms are offering, kind of a subscription service that unlocks new elements of the app or dApp, and maybe access to like different information and all sorts of things like that. So Sauce Pro, they're going to be doing that. They're also working on active liquidity management protocol integration, an upgraded buyback program. They want to initiate more custom tailored Larry campaigns. So that's the reward, the incentivized reward system that SaucerSwap has. They want to do better analytics for those reward incentives. And they're going to be working on web app optimizations. I know that they're at like their website, they were having some speed issues with it. So they're just working on those. So it sounds like they got some housekeeping to do, and they also have some things to complete from last year. Very curious about Sauce Pro. Another thing they have some stuff prioritized for development. So these are things on the near-term roadmap. So one is token-weighted voting system, which is very interesting. We've seen that on a few other platforms, but the whole kind of governance DAO component for a dApp like SaucerSwap would be very interesting to see. Like when Dovu did their token migration to HTS and utilized Galaxy's DAO voting platform, it was really seamless. Like the Dovu community voted with their tokens and it was accomplished and it was really great. So seeing that on SaucerSwap more would be very interesting. An auto router, and then prioritize for developments, things that are planned but not yet in development are community pools, right? That's been a big point of conversation. On-chain limit orders, which I think a lot of people have been looking for, is being able to do a limit order on SaucerSwap. Front-end bridge integration, fiat on-ramp integration, batch transactions with HIP 551. So that's going to be HIP 551 and batch transactions on SaucerSwap are going to be a huge boost in kind of just the quality of the product and the user experience, like the ease of doing it, which again is just going to be perfect as we enter into, that bull market. And Hedera Wallet Connect integration. So, I mean, with SaucerSwap, with stuff like this, we really need to talk about these apps as much as we do about the Hedera network itself. I mean, we're at a point now where it's going to be so important for Hedera to have an application that's used by millions of people that maybe don't necessarily know it's built on Hedera, right? And when you look at SaucerSwap as a DEX, the future seems really bright for SaucerSwap. And I think that you look at SaucerSwap and you look at a few other use cases on Hedera, a few other companies and startups and dApps and stuff. And it's pretty clear that we have some really good success stories. They're hard to see right now because everybody collectively has been kind of like stifled by the bear market. But I think there are a lot of really battle-hardened surviving use cases on Hedera that are really primed for a lot of success. And you can see it in the numbers, right? When you look at the Sauce token, it's up, 350% over the 90 days. It's seen some really great price action. Clearly there's traction, right? People are literally putting their money where their mouth is. So it's going to be very interesting. And I want to move on to this other story. It's very interesting. This is a very, very interesting story. This is on the topic of new use cases, rumors, potential new governing council members. But we're at the kind of the very beginnings of it. And this is about WISeKey. I don't know how many folks have kind of heard about WISeKey. And kind of on this too, just a reminder, I'm asking listeners a question, and I've asked the community over the last couple of days this question and got a lot of great responses. If you want to provide your response to this question, just hit that little comment button on the bottom right in Twitter Spaces here and let me know. But the question is, what's the most important thing for an HBAR holder to watch for in 2024? Lots of great answers so far. Leave your answer. But again, this is where my head goes with who is WISeKey. So WISeKey are a publicly traded company. They're kind of an umbrella corporation for a bunch of other companies. I'd guess, the whole conglomerate is maybe, tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. They give me a very startup vibe. Now, they got a funding round, different from an investment, but they got a funding round from the Hashgraph Association in Switzerland in August. And now they're getting an investment. So as we've talked about before, the Hashgraph Association is switching more kind of to a equity model instead of funding. So instead of what the HBAR Foundation does, where they give a grant, the Hashgraph Association more directly invests in startups. So it's a different model. And so WISeKey is now getting an investment from the Hashgraph Association, and they want to use Hedera. And So what WISeKey does is they have a lot of different aspects of their business that are perfect for applications on Hedera and experience in Web3 that are really relevant for Hedera. But where they're starting and where they started in August and where they're continuing is one of their platforms called WISeArt, wise.art. So they seem to be kind of diving in first to the NFT space. So overall, they're really strong and focused on the IoT space, right? Internet of Things space, which we hear about a lot in the Hedera ecosystem from, for example, like Dell Technologies or IBM or other governing council members, or even companies like Neuron or Citadel Wallet that, there's Hedera has a lot of applications in IoT. WISeKey is also focused on microprocessor designs and manufacturing for, like cars and drones and satellites. So also they do have a hardware focus. The IoT components of their business really feel similar to Neuron. So if anyone's familiar with the Neuron use case on Hedera, they're kind of like aviation, drones, IoT. I saw them talk in LA last year, and we've talked about them a lot on the show. But this WISeKey, that component of their business kind of reminds me of Neuron quite a bit. Now, in 2021, WISeKey got into blockchain, and this is kind of how they got started, which I found really interesting. I watched an interview with their CEO, and they sent up a satellite that minted NFTs via Casper, the Casper network. And this was to provide a secure connection. So these are tiny little satellites, and basically they ran the transactions up in space via satellite because you're effectively like air gapped from the planet. If you're doing transactions off planet, it adds another layer of security. So that was their thought process, is like doing crypto transactions up in space, so interesting. They have a really, really big focus on cybersecurity. And so when you look at their first dive into Hedera over the last few months, they're minting NFTs on the Hedera network. They have a marketplace. It appears to me to kind of be a little bit multi-chain. And they're doing physical NFTs. And there's a theme emerging right now with Hedera and satellites. There was that conversation that, the community had with people at SpaceX, and then a few other things. But yeah, there's this new theme. Even Lehman has spoken to this, of like the off-world, interplanetary structure of a DLT. Like, what would it look like for Hedera to be operating in space and in satellites? And so it's very, very interesting stuff. So let's take another bit of a look at WISeKey as a business, just because this reminds me a lot as well of kind of like Hyundai, where they announced kind of a specific use case that was supply chain, ESG on Hedera. And it was kind of out of nowhere a little bit. They're not a governing council member. They're a large corporation, and, it's going to be interesting to see what comes from that. But again, these are similar because it's a company that's kind of like starting to build a use case. They're not a governing council member, but it seems like they could be governing council material, or, I don't know how big they are as a company. I don't think they're that big. But let's look at this, and you make up your mind about what could be happening with WISeKey and Hedera. So WISeKey International Holding Limited, commonly referred to as WISeKey, is a global company known for its expertise in cybersecurity, digital identity, and IoT solutions. As a Swiss-based holding company, WISeKey operates through several subsidiaries, each focusing on different areas of technology. So right away, cybersecurity and digital identity solutions. Like, what phrase have we heard the most from the Hedera ecosystem? It's digital identity solutions. So WISeKey specializes in robust cybersecurity solutions, including root of trust, right? So a little bit of the provenance type stuff, public key infrastructure, essential for secure authentication and identification in various sectors, especially IoT, blockchain, and AI. So off the bat, some of these technologies they're working on and being connected to Hedera and already leveraging the network, you kind of go, okay, this is very similar to a lot of use cases we've been seeing, very similar. So IoT solutions. So with the deployment of over 1.6 billion microchips, right? So WISeKey has 1.6 billion microchips out there across various IoT sectors, so a large industry footprint. WISeKey plays a significant role in securing the Internet of Things. Their technology is crucial in ensuring the safe communication between interconnected devices. So that's kind of where that vibe comes in of like, oh, well, we'll mint an NFT in space via satellites. So now these are some of their subsidiaries. So SealsQ Corp focuses on the semiconductors, the private key infrastructure or public key infrastructure and post-quantum technology products. So again, even more alignment with Hedera. Hedera is very focused on post-quantum stuff. So right away when I started reading about that with WISeKey, I was like, oh, okay, yet another kind of similarity. WISeSat AG specializes in space technology, particularly secure satellite communication for IoT applications. So right there, doing crypto things in space. Wise.art Corporation operates Wise.art marketplace for secure NFT transactions. And then post-quantum cryptography, WISeKey is actively involved in developing cryptographic methods that are secure against potential attacks by quantum computers, a field known as post-quantum cryptography. Again, an area that Hedera kind of excels in. So already just looking at WISeKey, and again, WISeKey as an overall company isn't necessarily involved with Hedera. Their subsidiary WISeArt is. It got a grant and an investment from the Hashgraph Association. So let's take a little closer look at WISeKey. At WISeArt. Real quick, like the naming of these companies is insane. Like they spell it capital WIS, lowercase e, and then the word key. And then their subsidiaries, like they're spelled so weird you can barely read them. It's so corporate. So there's a press release put out about this investment. I think it was put out yesterday from the Hashgraph Association. So WISeKey International, a global leader in cybersecurity, digital identity, and the Internet of Things solutions, blah, 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 blah. So through its subsidiary, Wise.art, a leader in the field of digital art and luxury collectibles, is proud to announce the closing of a strategic investment round with the Hashgraph Association, a Swiss-based nonprofit association that is accelerating the broad adoption of the Hedera network globally. So another excerpt from this press release that I found interesting that we talked about, we haven't touched on yet, but is SealCoin. This is something that was very interesting about this. So SealCoin is a digital token and an advanced cryptocurrency protocol offered by SealsQ that we talked about. Again, this is like spaghetti to untangle. Offered by SealsQ Corp, a subsidiary of WISeKey, which focuses on developing and selling semiconductors, public key infrastructure, and post-quantum technology hardware and software products. SealCoin is designed to establish a robust economy specifically for billions of internet-driven devices, enabling them to exchange not just data, but also currency seamlessly. So what's going on there? So this is a company that wants to take billions of IoT devices and make it so they can exchange not just data, but also currency. Right. So this is what gets me thinking about Neuron and gets me excited because maybe they're not using Hedera for this specifically, but again, it's these types of use cases, these types of companies starting to crowd around Hedera and not only have these ideas, but go, well, someone else is also currently doing this. So it definitely will work for this other use case. So it's very interesting to see. The tokenization of Wise.art's equity shares. So this is another kind of hook that they have to this announcement that's also interesting. So Wise.art, they want to tokenize the equity shares through the legal and regulatory compliant issuance of digital shares under the Swiss regulatory framework and using the Hedera token service. So this is going to enable the future of investment and enhances efficiency, liquidity, and security of share trading with the subsequent listing of Wise.art's tokenized equity shares on a regulated digital securities exchange. So what's that press release part there? So basically, this is a company that wants to take the shares of their company, tokenize them on the Hedera token service in preparation for a regulated digital securities exchange. So much to unpack there, because this is something they've been working on for a while. It's clear that they have determined they would like to use Hedera token service for the shares of this company, their subsidiary, Wise.art. And they are clearly forecasting the arrival of a regulated digital securities exchange. So what they're talking about is a stock market full of stocks that aren't traditional stocks in the sense of how they're technically implemented, but are still stocks through and through. They're shares in a company. But instead, those being minted on a network like Hedera. So that's very interesting to me. And it also makes it interesting that they're stocks in a company that is an NFT marketplace. Like there's so many different interesting components to this. Now, I got to be honest. I went on the Wise.art website. It blows. Like this marketplace, like this website really sucks. Let me see here. Wise Art. Yeah, platform.wise.art. Oh, now I get it. Maybe the dots in their name are their domain names, I guess. Cute. So I'm just waiting for this to load. But yeah, you got NFTs from like Ethereum, some different things, but it's slow. I don't know. I maybe they're going to be redoing a lot of their products. Maybe that's what this investment is about. Maybe they're going to be revamping it. But I will say, like, as a marketplace, it like the website is not great. But the reason I'm excited about it is it's really a tiny, small component of what this overall company is doing. And I mean, like, I love to see, new players enter the NFT space, and they're doing something interesting though. So they're offering white labeling options specifically designed for NFTs. So the NFTs not only represent the digital asset, but also link it irreversibly to a physical object. This provides proof of ownership, provenance, use, and monetization strategies via smart contracts. So again, leveraging the Hedera EVM for smart contract functionality. So although on the surface, the website is kind of garbaggio, you can't judge a book by its cover. Many, many times in this ecosystem, I've seen, use cases and stuff boot up, and they've just kind of not been great, but they turn out to be incredible. So I'm not going to judge it by the website. I just was on it and I was like, Jesus. Also, the platform also offers Wise ID, which acts as a trusted identity service. It allows users to securely access web and mobile applications through robust authentication processes. So like when you think of NFTs and like, crypto NFTs and like all that kind of stuff, security, like cybersecurity, isn't something that generally comes to mind. It's not something generally associated with NFTs. Maybe it is inherently just because of the blockchain or the Hashgraph. But like when you really think about it, I can see how NFTs, a pain point for NFT infrastructure is a lack of security. We've seen a lot of issues. So looking at it through this lens, I'm very interested to see what they do. I'm hoping what they do is kind of the route of like open sourcing and standardization and participating in, consortiums and stuff, but we'll have to see because it sounds like it's a pretty big scope. They highlight Hedera on their website too, which is great. The tech optimizes, and the way they highlight Hedera is very interesting to me. I think it's important to pay attention to how companies and use cases frame Hedera. This is how they frame Hedera. It's very interesting. This tech optimizes Ethereum's virtual machine, smart contracts, and provides efficient native tokenization and consensus services. That's a great way of flipping it, right? Like we don't like when we talk about Hedera, we don't necessarily lead with the fact that it's, an optimization of Ethereum's virtual machine, but that may be really appealing to folks on other networks. So it's a really, and then, tacking on, and provides efficient native tokenization and consensus services. So that's interesting. Consequently, it facilitates the development of real-time Web3 applications and systems. it's very corporate. That's another thing about this marketplace is it feels so corporate, like there's no soul to it. So it feels like it really is like a minimum viable product. And I think it'll go over a major my prediction is this marketplace goes over, goes under a major overhaul, very soon. Now it also, we have seen many times investments in different marketplaces on Hedera that are very, the marketplaces that have seen success on Hedera were relatively simple, right? Like Zeus Market had success. CentX has a lot of success right now. And there's been a few others like Hash Guild. But the point is that largely they're successful because they're kind of focused on the Hedera community a little bit, and some of these multi-chain marketplace plays and stuff like that. It's like we've seen them kind of fizzle out. Like we've seen many Hedera marketplaces that get investment and support and funding, but like don't really go anywhere. Like you could look at the DEX ecosystem, right? No need to name names, but it's tough to compete in this market right now. So it'll be interesting to see if there's success. And will they bring, this is also a huge problem I see with new NFT marketplaces or whatever it may be, is when they bring will they be bringing new customers to the network, or will they expect the kind of like the Hedera NFT ecosystem to jump in? Like, is this going to be a thing of like new marketplace launched and revamp and all those kinds of things, and really hoping that Hedera NFT holders go there and buy a Gucci handbag or something or whatever? It's like, I don't know for sure. Another thing that comes to mind too is like Twigital, how you do the 3D scanning of objects and stuff to record provenance. I don't know. I think that I'm poo-pooing it quite a bit just from my first impressions, but again, don't want to judge a book by its cover. And again, this is just one aspect of this company. This is like a little drop, right? And really kind of, it led my brain to a few different places of like, okay, so this is a company that's using Hedera right now. Shout out to neo.hangry. They got to go. Appreciate you. Thanks for sharing episode 100. Cheers. This is why I like doing a live show. I like chilling out with people. But yeah. Now, there's some use case ideas for WISeKey. If we kind of project and kind of look into kind of the rumor thing and go, okay, so WISeKey, right? Sure, they got a NFT marketplace. Cool. But what else are they doing? What else could they do? Now, tokenized equity share, obviously we talked about that. Authentication of a digital art collection. So using wise.art to create a digital marketplace where artists can sell NFTs, and ensuring each piece is authenticity and provenance for sure. IoT device transactions. So using Sealcoin in IoT devices could enable them to autonomously execute transactions such as, a smart refrigerator ordering and paying for groceries. That's kind of where this is. Or if you look at it in the satellite context, right? It's like satellites being able to perform transactions autonomously off Earth, or, a car being able to pay another car for something, or microtransactions, or who knows what it could be. Also implementing seal queues, post-quantum cryptography in automotive systems, right? It could secure vehicle-to-vehicle infrastructure. So very soon cars are going to have to talk to each other much more. That's going to have to be secure. Imagine hacking the communications of two cars talking to each other. Yikes. And of course, satellites, satellite communication. There's a lot of different things here, but yeah, WISeKey. It's on my radar. I saw the original headline in August about the kind of funding from the Hashgraph Association that they got. And, wasn't that interesting, but because it's an investment now, they're actually giving up equity to I assume they're giving up equity to the association. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. I want to talk real quick now about our last main story, and then we'll just kind of go through some other stuff. And if anyone wants to come up, feel free to request to speak. Would be more than happy to have some folks come up on the show. But I asked a question of the community, and I asked folks live right now, and I'm going to read these out. But if you do have any answers to this question, leave it in the comments. There's a little comment button at the bottom right of the spaces. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. But the question is, what's the most important thing for an HBAR holder to watch for in 2024? And there's been a few good responses from people on X. Tatsuaki Akamoto, the one of the legends in the Hedera space right now, putting out some great content, coming in hot, responded. He says, more enterprise use cases with high throughput, ideally going live, should be a top metric of success given the core network strategy. So that's a great point. And he'd also like to see the council filled by end of year. I've heard a lot of people say that they expect or they predict that the governing council could be filled by the end of this year. That would be about one governing council member a month. 10 seats. So kind of one governing council member a month. So it's going to be interesting. Someone else says, at Polly221 says, governing council use cases going live, permissionless nodes, new governing council members. So that's a really great point, is permissionless nodes. I don't know if we're going to permissionless nodes happen after community nodes, and community nodes happen after permissioned nodes. So I would say we'd love to see permissioned nodes and community nodes. That would be huge. Like, I don't know if that's going to happen this year. I get the sense that there's like a 50-50 chance that community nodes happen this year. That's the sense I get. And again, I think that it's important to remember kind of like permissioned nodes are the first step before that. That would mean that, for example, a company that wants to be on the governing council but maybe can't make it to the governing council could run a node anyways without being on the governing council. So that would be the first step. Someone else says $5 HBAR. Hey, I'm not gonna say that's crazy. $5 HBAR. I mean, I'm so done with seeing crazy HBAR predictions out there and kind of like shooting them down. Sure. $5 HBAR. Use cases going live on mainnet. Someone says Microsoft governing council announcement. I've seen, I think today there was a post that was put out about a rumor regarding, like Nintendo, Sony, or Microsoft. It's like Microsoft has partnered with so many different use cases already on Hedera. Like, for example, MTech's CBDC stuff, they're partnered with Microsoft. They're also partnered with MasterCard. I don't know. I see Microsoft as being a very strong potential governing council member. It's just, Lehman has said, they'd like to see more diversity on the governing council. So, for example, there's a lot of tech, there's a lot of finance. It'd be cool to see more industries on there. So, the tech sector is kind of, crowded on the governing council. So that's the only knock I see against Microsoft joining. I think the edge that Microsoft has is with AI, but we already have Google, so it's interesting. Someone else says regulation, right? And the question is, what's the most important thing for an HBAR holder to watch for in 2024? Yeah, regulation, one word. I think that pretty much sums it up for a lot of people. That's what we're seeing right now, right? We were talking at the beginning of the show about the Bitcoin ETF stuff. That's what that conversation is about. Someone else says, the Davos convention, that's a really important one to watch. Davos happens this month. I think it actually happens next week, if I'm not mistaken. Last year that they did Davos, they had the Hedera house, if people remember. We had a really good pump in HBAR. Good time all around. Now I know that, the World Economic Forum and stuff like that, everybody has a lot of different opinions on that. I think that in general, just as an HBAR holder, just the question, it's like, that is something to pay attention to, regardless of what you think about it, definitely something to pay attention to, because it did have a very big effect on the network and on the price of HBAR. Someone else says regulation. Someone else says governing council member announcements. Oh, someone said at Clarity DeFi says the coupon bureau. We talked about that last episode too. The coupon bureau, is seems like they're making progress. So that's another thing to look out for. Someone else says scams. Yeah, definitely look out for scams in 2024. Let me see here. Wow, there's a lot of comments on this one. Community nodes, of course. Davos. Yeah, so I think really like the key takeaways here from the post I did, and I'm going to read some responses from the comments here. Yeah, I think it's really kind of like governing council members, community nodes, and use cases on the Hedera network. I think that's really kind of like what it really comes down to. Someone else says, Neo.hangry says, and Patches, I'll bring you up in a second, but also says governing council member additions. Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward, I'd say. Now, I want to chat with Patches. It's really good to have you on the show. I think it's been too long. I think last time I had you was on episode 100, so it hasn't been too long. But I know you're busy. You're working away on stuff. How's the new year treating you so far, man?
Yeah, happy New Year. It's good. I just had a meeting end early, and I saw that you were still rocking, so I wanted to tune in. Unfortunately, like for some reason, you always do this, and like Wednesday's my meeting day, so I'm always watching you talk, but not actually being able to listen. So I always do on the podcast, though. But
right on.
Yeah, I'm glad to be able to join, and if there's space to talk about new meta that's coming out tomorrow. Yeah, I'm here for it, and if not, then I'll just leave on that.
No, let's chat a minute. So, you were sharing with me some info you had on like this HCS 20, kind of like, I guess it's a play on like the BRC 20 or whatever it is, and it's using the consensus service for points and different things. So, I was really curious about it. I kind of read some of the stuff you sent over, but I don't know if you wanted to chat about that. It's very interesting.
Yeah. So, shout out to Moonshells, which is a project we run at Turtle Moon, where we're creating and have been trying to create auditable points that aren't fungible tokens for over a year and a half. Talking with lawyers, discussing what's the easiest way to do this. Our main concern was walking into a compliance arena where we make a fungible token, and then Gary Gensler knocks on our door, and it's just a horrible experience.
Right.
And it's, it's a problem that a lot of people run into. And then it collided with the meta that is BRC20 tokens, which have incepted every network, seemingly, except Hedera up until this point. And the benefit of Hedera is that when trying to create that, I created a standard that I was going to release, but then BRC20s took off. And so I actually adapted it to accommodate two things. So tomorrow we'll release the documentation. I have a whole Twitter thread. There's a free tool to download, Mac, Windows, Linux, that you'll be able to use to interact with HCS 20s. But the intent is twofold. One, create a standard that any network in any application could utilize a topic ID to document auditable movement of points, from leaderboards for games to Starbucks points and loyalty cards to airline miles. If you want to use a topic ID, which is 1/100th of a penny to write any one record to dictate the movement of points, you can use this standard in Hedera, no matter where you are, to have an auditable trail that's publicly defined. And the application I wrote as Turtle Moon is a indexer, and it will index the validity of transactions and the current balance. And so if you're Starbucks, you'll have an application anyone can go to and look at and say, okay, well, my balance is this, and these are all the transactions I've had, and I can see everyone's balances are auditable. Or you can see that like Brandon has 10,000 more than he should ever have had. Something's fishy there. So it brings the Web3 transparency to any Web2 leaderboard system or any Ethereum. it really opens up the kind of, Hedera's purpose is to make all other networks better mantra. HCS 20 is the method in which anyone can make their arbitrary Web2 points auditable. That's the main swing. That's what we're doing with our greens for Moonshells. Punk points are wrapped up in this. That's the idea. But the second idea is this is essentially inscribing on Hedera as well. Okay. And the first part was the main thing I was trying to solve. But then I adapted the attributes to accommodate ordinals because BRC20s have become a de facto standard on so many networks. So if you have a indexer for BRC20s, it'll work mainly for HCS20 So that's part of it.
Oh, interesting. So this is basically like, I've been watching kind of your updates and tweets about kind of the ordinal space and the issues they're having and stuff, and what a great solution Hedera could be. So this is kind of like a little bit of the setup for if they're curious about Hedera, they'd go, oh, all this stuff kind of just works. It fits me more like a glove, Yeah,
it's there's a lot of Sendit culture, and ordinals has the problem / they would call it a feature, which it makes sense to me. It's extremely expensive to inscribe and to move and to do things, and the limited block space makes it difficult to do. So here we have two modes of HCS20. If the topic ID does have a submit key, then you can assume that an entity like Starbucks controls all transactions on that topic ID. And so the transactions are calculated just from first is first. If it's a public mode, that would allow essentially BRC20 type movements. So decentralized public mints, anyone can write anything to that topic ID. There's a proposed topic ID that is in the standard that says it has no submit key. The tool, when you download it, has that topic ID loaded. So if you want to deploy, like you would deploy a BRC20 token, but on Hedera, you can do so with this free tool, Mac, Windows, Linux. It's open source. The source code will be released tomorrow as well. And so the intention is twofold. One, create a standard for literally every pointing system on the planet that could easily use a topic ID with a submit key to have an auditable system for trust with their users. That's the first part. Second, make a BRC20 degen topic ID and inscription on Hedera accessible, easy, and fun, so that if people want to play with topic IDs and the standard for points sort of more like a BRC20 instead of just auditing, they can do that as well. So it's a twofold knockout, first pass at a standard, and I'm pretty excited to see the uptick or non-uptick of the public mode. And
weird, I lost you there for a second.
Yeah, on inscribing. Sorry, yeah. If people are interested in inscribing, yeah.
No, that's awesome. And so, okay, so you said, just for people listening, so topic ID, and so there's two interesting things. So first is the kind of like the topic ID and what that's all about. And then also something you hit on is like projects and companies want to do things with like points and different stuff like that, but they don't necessarily want to be creating a coin or something like that, which kind of opens you up to like, trading. And as you said, like the SEC and different things and all sorts of things when maybe you just want to have a point system. So like, maybe expand a little more on like, what are the differences between this application of effectively creating like, many could view it as like a coin or a token or whatever versus using the token service or a smart contract to do it, and kind of speaking to what you were talking about is like not wanting to get in trouble for doing stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that it's not replacing fungible tokens in any way. It is giving an option for, I guess like the best way to say it is that Hedera Consensus Service has been described to me as like a blank sheet of paper. And I agree with that. It's so versatile. There's so many, you could fold origami, you could write a graph. There's so many things you could do with a blank piece of paper. What this does is hopefully brings a very simple onboarding point to, hey, I want to like have auditable points. Now I don't have to think about how to structure my data. Now I don't have to worry about if people can externally audit it. it's trying to just make that blank piece of paper have some structure so that it's easier to adopt. That's kind of like the one pass at this. The second, which is more about, hey, I don't want a fungible token. There's three things that it brings. One, there's no new economy you create. And this is something we really went through with Hgraph Punks, where we never wanted to create a fungible token because, like, thinking of an NFT economy is one thing, but then you just bolt on a new tokenomic economy that has to also relate to your JPEG economy. And, you know, like most NFT creators and fungible token creators aren't economists. So it's just
Right.
It gets really unwieldy really fast. So there's no ability for a liquidity pool or value expectation externally other than what's dictated by the creator. So it gives a lot of control of an entity that, again, with legal compliance, say, hey, there's no liquidity pool. So if I give you, 10,000 greens, you can exchange that for 10,000 HBAR. It's very, very difficult for you to do that. So there's legal compliance there. And then the last part is control flexibility. Because a topic ID with a submit key, if there's fungible tokens and I give Tata like 4 million greens by accident instead of 4,000, well, that's done, right? Like I can't undo that.
Right.
In this, I would be able to burn out of his wallet how many I wasn't supposed to give him. And it's not malicious because I'm the entity that is moving these, like a database, I could do the same thing. Game points, I could do the same thing. And then the benefit is now Tata can see that I messed up and that it was corrected through a burn. And now you can ask me why I burnt stuff out of his wallet, or it's not a wallet, but out of his balance. But it's auditable and it's changeable. Unlike, like you could wipe with a fungible token, but there's, I think, a different ideological and technical thought process when I look at a fungible token balance rather than a arbitrary JSON HCS20 balance. Right? That's the last part, is that control and then that feeling of ownership, because you don't own these things. It's not a dictation of ownership. It's a dictation of my balance for you on a arbitrary point.
I've got you. So what you're describing is this could effectively work for, Bitcoin ordinals and, your loyalty points program at your grocery store.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Exactly.
I dig it. I like this. Well, I'm gonna move on here in a bit, but I wanted to see if there's any other kind of like highlights you wanted to give on this just before we move on. I don't want to go over too much because I know you have the article and the thread coming out soon, so I want to keep people.
I'm literally reading it, so I think I just there's no alpha anymore. That was all of it.
Right. Love it, dude.
But yeah, I would just say honored to be talking to the HBAR of the Year 2023.
Come on.
I'm pumped to see the show getting all the enhancements. And I took like a month to really just clear my head and like conceptualize stuff and not do too much. So I'm pumped to be back in the driver's seat and committing stuff and being back in the ecosystem and seeing some green. So
love it.
Let's go 2024. It's looking really good to me about what the opportunities and advancements are going to be in 2024 for Hedera.
Love it. Love it. Well, that was Patches at Swirlds Labs. Patches, thanks for coming by. And I really appreciate you stopping by. Pop by anytime, man.
For sure. Clarity. This was Patches from Turtle Moon. This is all Turtle Moon things.
Right. Okay.
But I also do work at
this,
Swirlds in another life.
This is Patches from Turtle Moon calling in. We'll have Patches from Swirlds on the show at another time.
Yeah, I'll update the PFP.
Yeah, and then we'll try to get both of you on at the same time.
Yeah, I'll get an AI bot and get some whisper generation going. It'll be good.
That would be
all
trippy.
right, cheers.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, how long is it going to be until you've got like spaces, streams and stuff that have like fake people in it? Like imagine having like an AI spaces host. They're taking my job. Yeah, if anyone else wants to come up and speak, go ahead. More than happy. I'm going to switch into some other news too. We have some other headlines just to kind of like get the show wrapped up here, but I'm just going to refresh my beverage real quick. So, yeah, we got some good other news. Let me just check. So there was a tweet put out by, we talked about them earlier, Neuron, doing that kind of IoT use case with drones and aviation and all sorts of different stuff. We talked about them on the show. I don't want to talk your ear off about it. Go back and listen to past episodes for more info about Neuron. I just wanted to talk about a tweet that they sent out recently. They got me very excited. I think it may have been before the holidays. I don't know. But they said, quote, "If Neuron realizes its ultimate vision, Hedera won't need any other use case to be successful. We're building a marketplace for procuring services peer-to-peer. Aviation data services are a great high-volume use case that demonstrates all the benefits of the technology." So pretty bold statement from Neuron to say, if they realize their ultimate vision, Hedera won't need any other use cases to be successful. That would imply that they would be doing, tens of thousands of transactions a second. If it's HCS, or if it's HTS, that'd be a different story. But anyways, pretty bold tweet. I had to mention that. So shout out to Neuron. I love the, like wild energy. I dig it. Speaking of TPS, just a quick note. I don't know where the TPS is at right now. Average TPS is much lower than usual. We're at 222 right now. As a lot of folks know, Hedera for a very long time was riding at about 3,000 transactions per second. And it dropped quite substantially December 28th down to, where did it drop down to? Down to like 40. So obviously, and this is the thing, is people on the outside might look at this and go, oh my God, what's going on? What could be happening? What's gone wrong? But when you look at the Hedera community, there's no real alarm bells going off right now. Nobody's freaking out. And I think it's because most understand at this point now that because about 95% of the transactions happening on the Hedera mainnet are from Atma.io from Avery Dennison, right? One use case. There will be many, many other use cases that are very similar to Atma.io, but that's the first one. And so that means that it's going to operate at their business cycle. And we've seen these drop-offs happen regularly with a frequent pattern, right? Like you'll see, every quarter you'll see a drop-off in transactions, which is most likely Avery Dennison with Atma.io doing a quarterly update or review or whatever it may be. And it being the end of the year, as expected, we talked about this on the last episode, it's pretty expected that you'll see a transaction drop off as that company, right, as that use case has their kind of like end of year, kind of review, I guess it is. But we're still, like right now, we're still kind of rocking at just over 200 transactions per second. And it's been about, I would say, almost a week. So it's interesting to see. And the other thing too that people point out is generally when we exit that drop off, we will resume at a higher level. So a lot of people are speculating that as the transactions per second number picks back up, it'll pick back up and go higher than it was before, higher than 3,000 transactions per second. So we'll have to see. I don't think there's any cause for alarm. It's just, good to keep an eye on. I think at this point we have a pretty good idea of what it's all about. Dovu is arriving on Uniswap, which is exciting. So, has arrived on Uniswap. They announced it on December 21st, just going back a little bit, just before I took a break from the show, as people know, kind of over the holidays. So there was a couple stories I wanted to just touch on, but yeah, Dovu, Uniswap, and it's a bit confusing, right? Because Dovu started out as a smart contract based token minted on BSC. And then they did that token migration in the fall to HTS on Hedera, now they're creating new pools on other networks utilizing the wrapped version of Dovu from Hedera. So it's very strange, but it's good to see, right? This is a good thing. This is a multi-chain project. Well, I guess it's not a multi-chain project, but the token is now available on, the largest exchange, which is great to see. Something else that was really interesting to see was, let me just move this down here. Regarding the president of Hedera, Charles, we've talked about him quite a bit. He's been president of Hedera for, I guess, like just shy of a month now. And I think, he's doing a really good job. Apparently he met with Christian and Zenobia just, when did they meet? Just before the holidays. So it's clear that he's kind of hitting the ground running. Charles is also going to be at Davos in Switzerland. So that'll be really interesting to see. And a lot of stuff he's been doing has been really good. There was a post that he made to celebrate the beginning of the new year where it was like this very serious photo of him kind of like giving himself a pump up talk in the mirror. And he's like, in 2024, there is but one rule. We don't play games. I kind of like the vibe of this guy. He's not afraid of a good meme, posting memes. I think there was that post to do with the clown shoes talking about, network cost and stuff. But anyways, he's coming hot, and he's also been posting like pretty much every day, like at least one or two really good use cases, like, what you could potentially use the Hedera network for, or what is currently being done on the Hedera network. And I think this is important because, again, this is a guy who's got hundreds of thousands of Twitter followers or X followers, and he's got, a lot of people on LinkedIn, like similar amount. And a lot of people read his content, and his content has really just like switched to like Hedera Maxi territory. And so I dig it. And I mean, it's good content. Like it's, what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the type of content that people in the Hedera community would be posting in the early days, really kind of getting back down to fundamentals, dreaming, thinking big, what could be happening, but also like what's currently happening. And he's retweeting like, SaucerSwap and community members and different things. So from a marketing standpoint, I think the new president of Hedera is doing a great job representing the network really well. Well, again, we'll have to see actual tangible results that rather than just, tweets or posts. But so far, I think it's pretty good. And I mean, how long is it going to be until he sets a NFT as his profile picture, right? I mean, it's only a matter of time before Charles, the Hedera president, gets, a Hedera NFT and sets that as his profile picture. That'd be crazy. Maybe I'll do a post today. I'll be like, hey, Charles, set your profile picture as an NFT. That'd be hilarious. Also too, there was a great episode of the HBAR Bull this week that I watched. And then I just wanted to bring up just a couple points that were discussed. It was an episode where there was, obviously, Brandon from the HBAR Bull, Zepsi, who a lot of people know in the community and from the HBAR Foundation. And then Rob Allen, who is at Australian Payments Plus on the governing council. So obviously like a very interesting kind of roundtable. And they were reflecting on 2023 and into 2024. And there's a few interesting things that were said. So just real quick, on Dell, Rob said, trust me, they're building up the use cases, and when it hits, it will really hit. So obviously Rob Allen, being on the governing council, knows about what Dell is working on, and he's conveying to the community that they are building, and when it hits, it will really hit. So that's exciting. Rob is also working with FSCO, as we talk about on the show quite a bit, FSCO being Fresh Supply Company that is creating the connections for MasterCard affiliated companies to use the Hedera network, and has their use case live on the Hedera. Rob is working with them on more use cases in banking and sustainability, which is really interesting. Rob also said that we're going to see a lot of announcements similar to the Hyundai announcement, because it was kind of spoken of like that Hyundai announcement was crazy because sure, Hedera, the foundation, and whomever else probably had a good idea that it was coming, but nobody in the community knew. And it wasn't a governing council member. It wasn't anything like that. It was just a very large company announcing they were building on Hedera. And so Rob Allen's saying we're going to see a lot more announcements like that, AKA big companies announcing they're building use cases on Hedera out of nowhere. Rob also said he's back at Australian Payments Plus and they're working on micropayments. Zepsi said, we talk about the pipeline a lot, but there are many use cases that will be organic that we don't know about, like Drop and Hyundai. So it's worth factoring that in. And that's important to mention is like, I think that as a community, we really focus on this concept of the pipeline and the different use cases that could be coming out of it. But the reality is too, is like, I think that as the network scales and as the community grows, it's like, there's going to be more and more use cases and announcements that happen like completely outside of that kind of maybe blindside people, which is going to be very interesting because Drop was crazy. Rob is also going to be the co-chairman of CorpCom, so the Corporate Utilization Committee. And this is great because he's going to be helping push through enterprise use cases, and he says there's more coming. So honestly, really, Rob Allen is the guy when it comes to payment stuff and enterprise and everything. So that'll be really interesting to see. It's great to see him back in the governing council capacity. He also said this, which was kind of wild, bold statement. He said, Hedera will have, quote, total domination of the refi space. So that's pretty bold. Hedera, he also said, Hedera made a big splash at Davos in a bear, and now it's a bull market, and Charles, the president, will be at Davos. So again, also a very different dynamic at Davos this year. Davos last year, we saw a pump in HBAR, but it was a bear market. Right. This year, it's a different story and it's a bull market. So it'll be very interesting to see. Also, too, the HBAR Bull said, how have people not copied the like low fixed fee thing? Right. How have other networks not copied that? Clearly, it's not technically possible, but it's really interesting to see that. And it's a good observation to have. I think it's a matter of time before another network launches with a kind of low fixed fee model. But it's tough to kind of predict that. It's tough to kind of see that happening. I also wanted to play, this was very, very interesting. I want to play a quick clip from the episode, from the HBAR Bull episode of Shane from the this is another episode real quick. Sorry. The HBAR Bull did 2 really great episodes over the holidays. This was from another episode. It was an interview with Shane from the HBAR Foundation and Mance Harmon from Swirls Labs, right? Co-founder of Hedera. And they were talking about different things. I wanted to play what Shane said. And this was very interesting because Shane talks about a cornerstone deal. And it's not really clear about exactly what that is, but the way that he kind of articulates it is very interesting. So let's listen in on this. Very interesting.
I'm most excited about some of the deals that we're working on in the pipeline that I think will thrust us onto the world stage, honestly. And I think that is, to me, early on, 2.5 years ago, myself, co-founder, David Kramer, our COO, and at the time our CFO, we got in a room and we said, what is it that we need to do responsibly? And we had this idea of a cornerstone deal. And we didn't necessarily know what that meant, but it was something that we have been really focused on and targeting. And knock on wood, 2024 will be the year that we find that cornerstone deal that will elevate us into the conversation around blockchain and how it's going to solve both consumer and enterprise challenges. That's what I'm excited about. I think it's been fun working on these opportunities, and I want to continue to spend our time there.
So that's really interesting right there is like, cornerstone deal. And it's obvious that that's something they'd focus on, right? I mean, when you look at the foundation and different things, it's like they haven't really had that home run yet. And when I say home run, I mean like big brand, big company, big product, millions of users, like all those types of things. So I think that's really what they're kind of touching on is a cornerstone deal. And so he continues on to say, 2024 should be the year that they find that cornerstone deal. They want a massive, large scale use case that millions of people will use, that will pay for. And they're working on a few projects right now that they say kind of could be that cornerstone deal. And again, I don't know what a cornerstone deal looks like. Is it them going to a company that's building on Hedera and doing a deal with them? Or is it them taking someone from 0 to 1 as a startup? Or I don't know exactly what that looks like, but it's, to my recollection, the first time that Shane and the foundation have kind of spoken to a, cornerstone deal. And it seems like a pretty big component and a big topic going into the new year. So it's going to be top of mind for me. I'm very interested to see more that's going to be happening around that, cornerstone deal. Mance also said at Swirlds, they're going to be making products. So what that means, I'm not 100% sure. When they talk about making products for the network, is that, they've made network explorers, but if they want to actually do those types of things, are they going to be building a wallet, or are they going to be building a marketplace, or are they going to be building something similar, or are they going to be building competing products? Or I don't know, it could go one of two ways. Either, they're going to be building certain types of reference implementations and open source libraries for different things, or are they going to do an Apple App Store type thing where it's hey, here's, our new DApp that stacks up against a few others in the ecosystem and is now kind of competing with those DApp. It'll be interesting. I think that's something that's on my radar for this year is Swirlds Labs, building products for this ecosystem and what that kind of looks like. It's because it's not like they haven't, right? But it's going to be really interesting to see. It's going to be really interesting to see. Is Swirlds Labs going to enter a phase of competing with other dApps on Hedera or something? I don't know. I don't think that's the case. It's just got my brain going. Also too, the HBAR Foundation is doing a spaces in an hour and a half at 3 p.m. Eastern. So make sure to check that out. Also too, I want to do a quick correction of something that I've been talking about in the community we've been talking about. Or maybe not so much a correction, but just an observation. We talk about governing council members that are set to expire. On the last episode, I was talking about, the 11 or 12 that were potentially on the chopping block. And there was maybe one that I thought would be a maybe that would be, have their term expire or whatever. But Twitter user King Crypto 1337 pointed out that the expiration rule doesn't go into effect until all seats are filled. So my question is, I got to look up where that is. It makes sense. Is it a situation where people will only expire if the governing council is full at that time? Or is it a mechanism where the governing council fills up and then that phase opens? It's weird. It's weird to think about. I don't know 100% on that. I just wanted to highlight that as a potential kind of note that I'm going to look into a little more. Also too, real quick, just our last story, just revolving around HBAR domains. There's a big announcement out on that from Kabuto. So there's Hedera name service, right? HNS, that's effectively managed by, I guess they're called HNS now. Is their domain still hashgraph.name? Let me see here. Should be. I don't know though. But anyways, hashgraph.name, right? And so the .hbar domains, right, as we've talked about on the show, they're minted on a topic ID, and you want to be able to have multiple providers in the domain space, right? It's very similar to the Web 2 domain space. They're let's look at GoDaddy and Google domains. It's you buy the domain name, you can move it to any provider you want, and those respective providers don't control domain names, right? That's part of a little bit more of a decentralized organization called ICANN. I don't know. It's not really decentralized, but anyways, no domain registrar provider has control over domain names. They just provide a service. Whereas on Hedera, it's like we've got hashgraph.name, and the names are recorded to a topic ID, and they are, they're not really allowing other providers to mint to that topic ID. And it's caused some confusion in the community and conversations. One of these conversations is a proposal by Kabuto to migrate .hbars to a different naming service that would, instead of being controlled by a provider, could be controlled by a smart contract, kind of effectively decentralizing a little bit of it. So there is a GitHub pull request. There's a few comments. I'm not going to read the content of the comment on the GitHub post, but it goes into some details about the current situation and some of the numbers behind it and everything. So I found it interesting, but I don't know if it's a very reliable source. But there is a conversation around this. It's ongoing, but I just wanted to quickly highlight it. I think that the domain space on Hedera is in an interesting phase right now. And we're going to continue to see it mature, but I think first there's going to be a few shakeups. So keep an eye out for that. I'm keeping an eye out for it, but that's the news on domains on Hedera. Real quick too, I just want to give another huge thank you to supporters of the show, giving tips to the show, all that stuff. It really means a lot. There's a post pinned to the top there with some information on how to, support the show and send a tip. It's just a Hedera address, send some HBAR, and it allows me to grow the show. We got a lot of HBAR contributed last year. So, was able to buy some new equipment and do a bunch of stuff for the show. So yeah. And I mean, we've covered every major news story. We've had a lot of great guests. Recently I had Dave from Takeon on. That was a fantastic conversation. I'm also looking forward to interviews I'm going to have this year. I'm going to put out maybe a post later today asking who people would like to see on the show as a guest. That'd be really interesting. That would be very interesting to see. The show's all live, ad free, no sponsors, community supported, independent. That's what it's all about, right? I mean, the people that support the show are the people that listen all the time, right? That's what I've noticed is people who really listen to the show, send a tip, send a contribution, and help grow the show. It's just amazing. It's a great community. And they support it because it's like a way to easily kind of control the show in a way, like control the growth of the show. It's like if the community wants more of the show by contributing HBAR, it's like, sends me a signal of, okay, I've got to work through my to-do list I have for myself of all the new things I want to do for the show. Instead of just kind of, doing things when necessarily maybe people don't want it quite yet. So it's a great mechanism to kind of let the show find its pace, make sure that it's doing what it needs to do, and yeah, you can support it by, sending HBAR. Also Galaxy, Galaxy is a great platform, social media app on Hedera. You can DM cryptocurrency. It's pretty crazy. Huge thank you to all supporters of the show. Yeah, and I mean, this episode was a great one. First episode of the year, getting booted up. Have made a lot of changes in the back end about kind of the format of the show. I'm continuing to improve it. I listened to a lot of listener feedback about how to make the show better. So continuing to do that. And yeah, I think that, this week's episode really is like, I think the key takeaway here is that as we enter the new year, as we've learned last year, it's really difficult to know what's going to happen. There's that quote, there's that saying, it's easy to overestimate what will happen in 1 year and easy to underestimate what will happen in 10 years. So I think that right now, as we reviewed the community answers to the question I asked is like, what should HBAR holders be focused on in 2024? I think overall it was the big picture. I think that through a bear market, we have to really focus on the fundamentals. We have to really grind and hustle. But I think that as we enter the end of a bear market into a bull market, I think that, maybe it's time to pull back a little bit, right? Maybe it's time to think a little bigger, and look at the bigger picture a little more. Like we talked about at the beginning of the show, all the Bitcoin ETF stuff, you could say on the surface, that doesn't really have anything to do with Hedera, but it kind of has everything to do with Hedera. Like these are just the pathways in which this entire industry grows, right? So I don't know. I think that, when we look at everything that happened, this episode is kind of covering the last 2 weeks. I think it really comes down to that. It's like everyone's reflected on last year. Everyone's looking ahead, but I think they're looking ahead with like a little bit of a broader lens, with a little bit of a bigger picture. Huge thanks to Patches for stopping by. It was great to hear about, the HCS 20 and all of the cool things that'll bring. It's pretty amazing to see a use case on Hedera come online that will facilitate the goals of both ordinals and, again, like your local gas station points. It's kind of crazy. Like that's very Web3. Huge shout out again to supporters of the show. Appreciate you guys. This has been episode 107 of the Hashgraph Enthusiast Show, titled "You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet." That's really what I feel about this. Is I really think that, as it goes in crypto, the next ride up will be 10 times sooner, 10 times bigger, and 10 times dumber than we could ever imagine. And yeah, that's what this weekly news and interview show is all about, right? Chatting about Hedera, chatting about HBAR, chatting about the crypto space. And you can listen to the show live and recorded, right? So it's live right now. I'm doing it right now on X Spaces every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. And then it goes up live the next day, Thursdays, on YouTube and Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all those other places. So check it out, subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you so much, everyone, for, again, like sharing, subscribing, reviewing the show, engaging. That's another thing. When you review the show on Spotify and Apple, it definitely helps a lot. And all the info about the show, everything you need, like I said, is at the brand new website, hashgraph.news. Check it out. All the past episodes are there too. You'll find this episode recording on there tomorrow, which I'm really looking forward to. But yeah, it's good to be back. New year. We're 3 days into it. It's been good so far. And it's going to be really interesting to see kind of, how people's views change on crypto outside of this kind of bubble, in the IRL with all the things happening, And with that, hello future, goodbye past.
Thanks for listening to the Hashgraph Enthusiast Show, hosted by Brandon Davenport.
Listen to past episodes and support the show at itsbrandond.com/HBAR.